Hi babes, it's Sharonda Isadora and welcome to Braids and Babe Reviews, and I will be doing a book recap, and that recap will be on Praise Songs for the Butterflies by Bernice L. McFadden, and here's your cover, and let's get to it, shall we? All right, so this is going to be a quick recap. I'm going to try to not give away any spoilers inside, of the story or from the book, what have you. So what I want to do is actually read the blurb to you so you can have a general idea of what the book is about. So here we go. Abayo Keito lives a comfortable, happy life in West Africa as the privileged 9-year-old daughter of a government employee and stay-at-home mother. But when Kato's idyllic lifestyle takes a turn for the worse, Abayo's father, following his mother's advice, places the girl in a religious shrine, hoping that the sacrifice of his daughter will serve as atonement for the crimes of his ancestors. Unspeakable acts befall Abayo for the 15 years she is held in the shrine. When she is finally rescued, broken and battered, she must struggle to overcome her past, endure the revelation of family secrets, and learn to trust and love again. In the tradition of Chris Cleave's Little B, this novel is a contemporary story that offers an eye-opening account of the practice of ritual servitude in West Africa, spanning decades and 2 continents. Praise Songs for the Butterflies will break your heart and then heal it. So simply, guys, the blurb pretty much gives you a general idea of what is going on in the story. Abayo, who really had this comfortable lifestyle up until the age 9 and who is suddenly given away to the shrine. And then after 15 years of being inside of this shrine, is kind of like explained to her about why a little bit, and I don't really think they covered, but anyway, why she was inside of the shrine, and I mean, after this 15 years of being inside of the shrine, who tries to have a real relationship with her real mother, because just as I'm gonna say inside of the title, there will be some spoilers. We come to find out, that Abayo isn't her mother and father that she knew growing up as this 9-year-old child. We're gonna find out aren't really her parents. They were her aunt and uncle. Abayo, an aunt that she thought was her aunt when she was a child, was actually her mother, but she was taken away from her mother and given to her mother's sister because her mother's sister was already married and she was having like this hard time conceiving, and the family just made this decision to make Abayo her aunt's and her uncle's child, when in all actuality she was not. And because her uncle, in my opinion, how I saw him from reading this story, he was a weak man, and some pretty bad times fell on him, and he wasn't able to take care of his family the way that he was previously. They were a privileged family, but some bad times fell upon them due to issues that were not of his own fault. The uncle was pretty much made a scapegoat out of a really bad situation. But anyway, he allowed his mother to manipulate him and he in turn manipulated Abeo's real aunt, and she was given away to the shrine where she spent these last 15 years being pretty much abused in every kind of way, sexually, physically, verbally. It was just the story is a pretty heavy story. It can weigh on you, and if you have some triggers, you might come across some triggers. But what I liked about the story is, for me, it was Abeo's strength of coming once she was out of that situation, which she did not come out of easily. How she was able to build this life after coming from something as terrible as that. But we just don't get like Abeo's story. We do get, her story is the main story, but the surrounding characters around her aunt, her uncle, the grandmother, the people that gave her away to the shrine, her mother, the woman that had this rescue center inside of Africa. We get a little bit of her story, we get a little bit of everybody's story, and it all pretty much centers around Abeo, because Abeo is the center character inside of the story. But the story is so deep and so heavy. It just, to me, this ritual servitude was not servitude. It was just another form of slavery for girls, and sometimes boys. But it was just another form of slavery, and it was a breeding ground for predators to take advantage of girls, of women, to do the things that they were able to do to them, and explain it away into some kind of what their God, wanted. I just, in every form of religion, we have kind of like this kind of like extreme fanatic base of, what our religion, if you have one, of what a religion is. And this is what I saw, reading this story. And then when you have that kind of like extremist, fanatic type of religion thing going on inside a certain sects, no matter what your belief is, then that opens up the door for these predators to come inside and take advantage of people. It's kind of like a cult, kind of a following, because people start to believe that maybe I'm having this patch of bad luck because, of something that, my family did, or I did like way back then. And it's just a repetitive kind of like pattern that goes on. And you kind of get a little bit of that inside of Praise Song for the Butterflies. But again, what struck me so much about the story, what struck home for me inside of the story, is Abeo's strength and her trying to just move on and have some type of life after the atrocities that she faced and saw. So many things happened to this woman while she was inside of the shrine. Not just her, but the other girls that were with her. It was just. And then, like, the way that some of these girls were rescued out of these shrines. You had people, sometimes Americans, sometimes Africans, going into these shrines and actually paying these so-called priests to release these girls. And sometimes some of the girls weren't even released. The girls that the predators had no longer use for, those were the ones that were released, but they still had to pay to release them. And it was just, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I know it just does not affect girls in Africa. This type of religious servitude type of a thing, young girls, we just have it in different forms. We have in some countries where girls are married off at as young as the age of 9. It's just, it's heartbreaking, and it's saddening. It's very sad to read stories like this, but I encourage any and everybody to read these stories, because especially a survivor story. Like, this is a fictional story, but this story is based on some women, some girls in Africa who had actually gone through this, So I encourage any and everybody to read these stories, because it just gives you this kind of like, this sense of something. And as I said, like, in my Instagram posts, that I feel like, you always feel like, because people have their own traumas and issues that they have to deal with, and you always feel like, like, no matter what your trauma is, and not to dismiss or excuse any type of, bad thing that you have ever went through. But, sometimes you read these books and you just feel like, oh my God, like, like, what happened to me could not have been that bad. It could have been. Again, like I said, not to excuse it, but, it's a lot. So this is a great story. I highly encourage it. It's a very good read, a high recommendation. This is definitely going on for one of my top reads of 2018. Miss McFadden, who's this prolific writer. She writes these very strong, moving stories, that always mainly deal with women, Black women. But this is a really, really good story, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. And like I said, what stood out for me with the story was Abeyo herself, just coming out of that situation and just be able to move on and have some type of life. It's just crazy. And and like the end of it, like the most potent part of this story is the ending, because the beginning of the story ties to the ending, and how Abeyo is, how in her heart, in her mind, how she's able to destroy the guy that raped her and kept her captive during these 15 years. She wasn't able to deal with, how she was just able to, like, in her own way, to destroy this guy and finally make peace within herself, to move on with the life that she needed to move on with. So again, great story, highly recommended. Praise Song for the Butterflies by Bernice McFadden. If you have not read this story, I highly recommend you do. And if you don't have this book, I highly recommend that you go get it. And let me just add this about Praise Songs for the Butterflies. The writing is amazing. It is a quick read. Miss McFadden is able to give you a full and complete story, drive right to the points of the story without giving you something that's long and drawn out. And with the tone of this book, I believe that was probably the best thing to do, because of the trauma and the situation that Abeyo went through while she spent these 15 years in a shrine. But again, this is an excellent book, and yeah, I can't highly recommend it enough. So that's it. Later days. Bye.